So far in this tutorial, we are plotting data using this Google Charts. We was using PHP and the MySQL database, and we was retrieving data from the database using PHP, and then we was using the Google Charts in order to create a chart on the web page that are showing data from this MySQL database. So this is our results so far. Basic PHP web application, and part of the web application we are creating this chart using Google Charts, and the data within this plot are retrieved from the MySQL database. And here you see the code for this application. It's a basic PHP file. First we just need to include these libraries from Google Chart, the Google Charts libraries. Then we was creating a function called drawChart, and the first part of that function was to create a two-dimensional data set where we was retrieving data from the MySQL database, and then we was creating this two-dimensional data of data in iterations using this while loop, where we was creating the data from the database. Then we needed to specify some options like title, x-axis, y-axis, legend, etc. And then finally we just created this div tag with my chart here, and was using these functions inside this Google Charts library to create a chart and draw the chart, and then it was presented on the web page like this. And if we now go to right click here to view page source, so you see that the data here has been dynamically created based on the data that are stored in the in the MySQL database. But the application is far from finished. There are lots of improvements that we can make. One improvements that we can implement is to use different types of x-axis. We can show data in a chart. In addition, we can also show data in an HTML table. And here we can also use Bootstrap for better visual appearance of the web page. We can also use the Google Chart to show data from multiple temperature sensors, etc. You can also create more functionality, like a drop-down menu where you can select a sensor that you want to plot, and you can also create functionality for selecting the date interval. You can create a from date and to date, and then the user can select the data interval by specifying a from date and a to date in the web page. And also in general, you can improve, of course, the user interface, the code structure, and the quality. Here you see some examples of different x-axis. So the one we created was just 1, 2, 3, etc. Then we was using this temp ID, which is just a running number, 1, 2, 3, etc. We can also use, of course, the temp date time that was part of the temperature table in this case. So here we are showing the entire date time like this, and then instead of using row temp ID, we can use row temp date time like this. So then it will look like this. If you only want to get the time, we can do it like this. Then we have 12, 12, 10, 12, 20, etc. according to the dates and date time stored in the database. And then we can use some of the built-in date time functions that are part of PHP. So then I'm retrieving this temp date time from the database. I'm creating a date time object of that one using this date underscore create function, which is part of PHP, and then I'm using this date format function in order to only specify hours and minutes as I have here. So 12 is hours and 00 is minutes. So 12, 10, 12, 20, etc. So let's see how we can do that in our PHP program. So here is our existing program. I'll just start by making a copy, not to destroy the previous one. So I just create a plot 3 or something and open that one. I remove that one. So here I'm specifying a temp ID. Let's specify, use that one instead, temp like this. Upload that file to the web server like this. Open it in my, so I can copy this one, create it in a new folder or tab using plot 3 instead. Like this. Just a second. Yeah, I guess I just need to specify that the date this date time need to be in this question mark here, start question mark and end like this. Let's upload the file and then we get these results. So then you see now you have the date and the time like this for each of the different points on this chart like this. And also right click, view page source, and then you see you get, this is the first one, this is the second one, etc. And then the date time needs to be in this single quotation mark like this in order to appear correctly on the web page. And if we only want to show the time and not the date, we can use some of the built-in functions in PHP. So then I can define a variable here, date equals to, I use this function called date create, which is just creating a date object of this string that are retrieved from the database. And then we just use this, copy this one, put it in here like this. And now we want to only get the time, so then we can specify time or something, and then use this date format function, which is part of PHP like this. And then input to this function should be the entire date object, comma, and then we need to specify the format. In this case we just want to have the hours and minutes like this, and then I will use that variable instead of this one here. So save it, upload it, and then go to my web browser, click refresh, and then you see you get 12, 12:10, 12:20, 12:30, etc. You see the same timestamp here when you hover over the different points on this curve like this. Here you see another improvement to our PHP web application, where we are going to plot data from MySQL database using this Google chart. So here is the previous application where we are plotting data from MySQL database. Typically we also want to show the same data that are stored in shown in the plot as a table or something like this. So let's see how we can do that. Here you see the code for that. So basically we just use the previous example and then we just add some functionality, retrieving the same data which I have already done, and also plot that or show that data into an HTML table like this. So here we define the headers with 3 columns, 1, 2, 3, etc., which we have here, the date time, which we present here, and the value. And then use the same while loop in order to build that HTML table row by row like this by using this while loop. To save some time, I have already made this code, so based on the previous example, plot 3, I was creating plot 4. So here we was retrieving the data and was plotting it. And in the bottom of the web page, I create this HTML table with the different columns, and then use the same query in order to retrieve the data from the database, and then I build up the HTML table record by record and row by row like this. So then I just upload this one as well to the web server, and then change from plot 3 to plot 4 like this. So then the plot is the same, but here also in the bottom we have this HTML table where we see the same data in a table, the same data as we show here in the plot like this. Another improvement in this application is to make it possible to plot data from more than one sensors. So here I'm just showing one data from one sensor, but assuming we have multiple sensors, then typically I want to either show 2 lines here in the same chart, one for sensor 1 and the other one from the other sensor, or if possible I could have a drop down here or something to choose which sensor I want to show in the plot. So let's see how we can do that. So assume we want to plot data from multiple temperature sensor, or it could be other types of sensors or other kind of information. Then we have 2 different options. We can show data from multiple temperature sensors in the same chart, or we can have or create a drop down where we select which sensor we want to show in the plot. For both these options, I guess we need to update our database. Our previous database was containing one table, a temperature table, but typically now we want to or need to have more than one table. We could have one table for called sensor like this, where we store the name of the temperature sensor, and then we could have a second table where we have the data itself. So this table are storing the different names for the sensor, and this table are storing the data from the different sensors. So then I have created the 2 table scripts for these tables, create table sensor and create table sensor data. I just copy those and then open my PHP My Admin tool, go to SQL and just paste in these 2 tables, click go here, and then you see I have these new tables, sensor and sensor data. I also want to insert some demo data so I can test my application. So then let's start with some put some data into the sensor table. Like this. So now I'm inserting 2 sensors into the sensor table like this, and then I'll also insert some dummy data for this, for the sensor data. So here I have for sensor 1 and the second sensor, and some data for that sensor and some data for the second sensor. Just do the same here, just insert this data into the database table like this. So now we should have some data in our new database structure that contains of 2 tables, namely sensor and sensor data. Then I have created a new PHP file to make this happen. I will not go into too much details here, but basically it's a bit more complicated, but it's based on the previous examples. So let's just upload that file to the web server and then go to the web browser and then change from plot 4 to sensor data.php, and then you see I'm able to actually plot 2 lines. So the blue one is from sensor 1 and the red one is from sensor 2. So here in the table in the bottom I show the values for sensor 1 and another column that shows data from sensor number 2 like this. So in the next example I don't want to show both sensor values from both sensors in the same plot. I want to show only one at a time, but I want to select which sensor I want to show data from. So here I will create a drop-down menu where I can select either the first sensor called thermocouple sensor or the second sensor called temp36 sensor. And when I select the proper sensor here in the drop-down, the contents of this plot and the contents of this table will change according to which sensor I'm selecting. So it takes too much time to create the entire code from scratch here, so I just have made it already. Let's open it. So here is the code from that. So basically more or less the same code, but here I have created this drop-down menu where I am able to select the sensor, and that's the different sensors are stored in the database. So then I'm here just creating a query, select sensor ID and sensor name from sensor, order by sensor name. And then inside this while loop, I'm just fill out this drop-down menu, and then I'm able to select one of these sensors and plot data from that specific sensor. So let's go to the FTP program and upload this version as well. And let's see the final results. Then sensor data, I called it version number 2, like this. Let me see. So at first time you started, you get this error, but now I need to select the sensor from this drop-down menu, which is popping up here. So let's select the first sensor called thermocouple sensor. Both these sensors are retrieved from the database, so let's select this one, and then it plots the data from that specific sensor and show also the same data in this HTML table. Then I can select the second sensor, and then you see the data is changing according to this selected sensor here. And also the data here is updated based on the selection I make here in this drop-down menu. So there is one final improvement I want to show you, in addition to how this drop-down menu where I'm going to select the specific sensor. I also want to, because in the data in the database can be many thousand or millions of records, so it's a good practice to be able to select from date and to date. So then I want to create this datetime picker here, where you select the from date, and another datetime picker where I specify the to date. And when I'm selecting the sensor here and from date and to date, it will only show the specific data from that time interval, from the from date and to date. So also here, I guess it takes too much time to create the code from scratch, so I have already created it. Let's open it. So I built this program on the previous one. So in addition to showing this drop-down menu, here, this is the code for showing the drop-down menu. Here, I also created code for from date and to date. And all these date pickers are built into the HTML standard. So then I just select an input type of datetime local, with an ID from date, and the second one, input type of datetime local and to date. So let's just upload this code as well to the server, and then just run it here in my web browser, version number 3, like this. And then you see I'm able to select the sensor here. I can select either the thermocouple sensor and then showing the data from that and showing here in the table, or I can select this temp36 sensor like this. In addition, I can select here in the datetime picker, I can select a from date and a to date. And now I need to go back to my database to remember which datetime we have here. So then we have some sensor data on these dates. and 12, 12, 10, etc. So then I need to select the same date here. So then go to February, 5th of February, from 12 or something, like this. Do the same here. Something like this, that. So now, I select the from and to date, and I select the sensor like this. And now, since I'm selecting from 12 to 12, there's not much data, but if I select from 12 to 13 or something, select the sensor once more, and then you see it only shows the data from that starting point to that ending point here. So basically that's our final application where we was using PHP to plot data from a MySQL database, and we was using this Google Charts library. We started by creating this plot, then we was improving our application by also showing the data in this HTML table, and also we wanted to just show data from one specific sensor by selecting that sensor in this drop-down menu. And also very often there are lots of data into the database, so we want to specify from date and to date, so we can only see some of the data that are stored in the database like this. So let's summarize. We was creating this basic PHP web application where we was retrieving data from a MySQL database. We was using the Google Chart library or API in order to be able to plot the data from the database in this chart. Improved application, also showing the data in this HTML table. And finally, we was also creating a drop-down menu where we was able to select which sensor we wanted to show in the chart, and also the amount of data we wanted to show by specifying from date and to date like this. So I guess that's all. So good luck with PHP, the Google Charts API or library, and your MySQL database. Thank you and goodbye.